Um, I think that, being in Quebec, it's been difficult for the Indigenous population here because the Quebec government doesn't acknowledge our history. So it's not taught in the schools. What is taught is usually very brief or not factual, which makes it very difficult. And what happens in Quebec is that because those that are going to school and learning about Indigenous people and not really understanding the depths of oppression that we faced through the Indian Act, through residential school, through 60 Scoop, that we have these challenges, and basically they're getting their information from cowboy and Indian movies, right? Um, so that's just specifically for Quebec. I think that throughout Canada, different provinces um, relationships with the Indigenous people that are different. So if you go to Vancouver and you walk it through the airport, you'll see beautiful Indigenous art everywhere. Like you are clearly on Indigenous land. You know it as soon as you land. That doesn't happen here in Quebec. You don't see anything. I've been to Thunder Bay. I've seen some art. So I was like, cool, Thunder Bay has it. But, every province is different. And also, like in some of the prairie provinces, if you are going to work with Indigenous people as a social worker, you have to take like a 5-day training. Even if you're Indigenous, you have to take this training. That doesn't apply here in Montreal. I tried to teach the police about Indigenous realities, and I think they gave us 3 hours. 3 hours. So it's an ongoing battle because of what happens with the Indigenous people here and residential schools. A lot of the kids were taken to Ontario to residential schools, and upon their return, they learned English. And here in Quebec, it's very pro-French. So the government basically set us up to fail by forcing us away from our families, which was devastating, being abused in the residential schools, coming back, not knowing your culture, and then not being able to communicate to, actually, work in the city or wherever it is. Although there were some residential schools that were in French, but there was quite a few where they sent them to Ontario. So I think that when it comes to systemic racism, it is everywhere. So we see it with youth protection, and that stems from residential school to the 60 Scoop to currently. We see it with the police. Montreal is 11 times more likely to racial profile Indigenous women than any other nationality. We see it with our jails. So they have something called the Gladue reports that the lawyers are not applying. And basically, Gladue reports say that before you sentence an Indigenous person, you have to look into their background and what kind of oppression they faced, and then sentence them accordingly. The lawyers won't do it. Why won't they do it? They don't want to do it because it's hard. So what do? It's Indigenous workers that learn how to do the Gladue reports and then fill them out. So it almost feels like all the answers to our issues need to be addressed by Indigenous people. And we do it. We do the work for sure because we have to. But at some point, society needs to sort of wake up and do better. So, and again, with the education system here in Quebec, they, like throughout Canada, they recognize September 30th as Orange Shirt Day. Here in Quebec, schools were choosy. So my kids' elementary school participated in it. My kids' high school did not. And I literally called my kids' high school and said, are you guys going to do something for Orange Shirt Day? And the receptionist was like, well, what's that? I don't know what that is. No, we're not going to do anything with that. So then how do you educate the students, right? So I think that when it comes to, CEGEPs, universities, they're doing a lot better than they did. But, when you have children at such a young age that could really learn about the oppression and the issues that we face, that's where you sort of, grow their empathy. And that's not happening. So, it feels like every day I'm fighting a new fight. And I don't know which fight it's going to be until I walk into the office and I hear what has happened in the world and how we can do something about it.